Today marks 100 days since lockdown started, and there has been a reported 40% increase in divorce inquiries. So how's your relationship doing? Well, psychologist Kimberley Wilson is on hand with some good advice. Kimberley, it has been a testing time for relationships generally, hasn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely has. I think whether you were dating and suddenly you can't see the other person anymore, or you are starting to see someone but you still don't really know each other very well, or even for established relationships where suddenly you're having to spend every waking moment together, that there are some real challenges that lockdown and its restrictions have really thrown up for relationships.
Very much so. It's created a whole new type of relationship, hasn't it? This kind of so-called turbocharged.
Yeah, you know how we love a little bit of new terminology. So we have this turbo relationship now from lockdown and for 2020. And what that says is it's really describing the way that relationships have had to accelerate. So perhaps people who were dating had just started seeing each other a little bit more seriously and then had to make that decision to lock down, have felt their relationship has kind of bypassed several months of dating. So, a new survey that came out from Relate and eHarmony says that around 2/3 of couples say that they feel closer, that they feel stronger, and around a third of couples are saying that they feel that their 2 months in lockdown has felt like 2 years in terms of
Dear. Oh, for goodness sake. Well, you look at somebody like Jack Whitehall, for example. We know that him and Roxy, there they are, beautiful. They probably went into lockdown and they're experiencing that sort of thing. It is turbocharged. Maybe they would have taken it a little bit slower. And as you say, it works for some people, but others just find it a bit much.
Yeah, and I think there are some of the details about where we are at the beginning of relationships, right? So that when you start dating someone, you're slightly infatuated, you're slightly idealizing them, you think they're perfect, and then suddenly you're thrust into this situation of having to see them every day, all day. And maybe you can make those compromises in order to suddenly realize when they're not perfect, they leave their socks around, or suddenly it's a bit of a rude awakening that this person that you thought was perfect really isn't. And of course, that's normal, that's natural, but it can be a bit of a shock.
No, very much so. When you see them, when they leave their underpants on the floor, or when you see them, gargling or something. I know exactly what you mean. It's also been really tough for couples that have been together for a long time. We've seen that with Emmerdale's Paddy and Chaz. Let's have a look.
Seriously though, why do you still bother with all that?
Standards, Paddy.
But it's just me and an infant. Who are you trying to impress?
Yeah, well, maybe it's not about you. Maybe it's for me. Maybe I don't want to look like some dowdy woman who's only here to cook, clean and change nappies.
See, it's the niggles, little niggles. I think a lot of people are finding that, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think the pressure of lockdown we've all felt it. You're really hemmed in, you're all on top of each other, you don't have those normal breaks that you have to do your own activities, to get out, to see friends, to decompress, that actually the normal things that help our relations to tick on that we don't realize, being able to go and chat to your friend and have a bit of a rant, aren't accessible to us anymore. So it's really for couples who are finding that they're just bickering a little bit more, really working on communication and compromise, and to deal with those little niggles as they come up and allow them to be addressed. Don't leave them to fester and become something bigger, but also for us to be compassionate with ourselves and each other, and to be willing to make compromises for other people and also for ourselves. It's a really difficult situation.
No, you're right. I mean, Stacey Solomon has been so open about this, our loose women, and obviously she's with Joe Swash, and she says they drive each other mad and they're getting on each other's nerves. They still love each other very much, but there is just that we're all feeling a little bit more anxious, and it's easier to be a little bit irked, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think just to accept that, because often people can get into a bit of a trap of thinking that everything needs to be perfect and everything needs to be smooth. And if we're arguing or not getting on, it means that there's something wrong with the relationship. Actually, we always need to think about relationships in context. And this is an incredibly difficult, very unusual, very stressful, very anxious context for us to be having our relationships in.
No, absolutely. And then thinking about people that are single as well, because Emily Atack, she was on the show, gosh, it seems like ages ago now, but quite near the start of lockdown. And she's very open about this and says it's very difficult. I mean, when you're in lockdown, it's not going to be easy to find someone, even online, because it's tough, You need to see somebody, you need to sort of build the relationship, and it's hard to do right now.
Yeah, and loneliness has been a problem for everybody across the board, not being able to have access to those normal relationships and friends and family. But I think if you're single and or dating, of course, suddenly, even if you can meet someone online, you can't actually meet them in person. So you're in this position of having to try to build a relationship without the normal things that we would need, little bits of contact and eye contact, seeing each other and being around each other. And that's tricky. So hopefully, as restrictions lift, that will become much easier for people who are single and dating.
And your advice to people who just think, you know what, this is the end of the road, I really can't be in this relationship anymore because a lot of people are driving each other up the wall. Is it better to just take a breath and wait, or should you just go for it?
I think half and half. I think one of the things that happens with a lot of relationships, sadly, is that they're not happy. They kind of limp along, though, because they have distractions. They spend all day at work and they're exhausted. They have dinner when they come home and go to bed. And so there are lots of relationships that aren't working, but kind of carry on because they've got lots of distractions. And what lockdown has done is to take those distractions away. And lots of couples have had to kind of face the reality of the situation that they're in. So it would be really important for people to be able to take a breath and see where they are. But also, very quickly, just to say that if your relationship isn't working, I think we need to get away from this idea that a relationship that ends is one that's failed or was a waste of time. Of course, that's not true, and that there can still be, really good things. There can still have been great love. It can still have been really valuable for each individual person to have been in that relationship, and it gives them something that they can take with them, either for themselves or into another relationship into the future.
Kimberley, you're a wise woman. Thank you very much indeed. It's great to talk to you. I'll talk to you very, very soon. Thank you, Kimberley.